To get back to a point that was made, as I read it, the 24-day suspect site process does expire in 15 years. The IAEA additional protocol alone wouldn't deter Iran based on our past experience with their noncompliance with the IAEA. So I think that point stands. The other question I just would like to ask Secretary Kerry relates to what the Secretary of Defense said in his testimony about the I in ICBM. He said stands for intercontinental, which means flying from Iran to the United States. Simply, countries develop ICBMs to deliver a nuclear warhead, and these will be aimed at us, not at Moscow. And at the same time that these missile restrictions are coming off, sanctions on the Iranian scientists involved in their bomb work are also coming off. So how is that making us safer? It seems to me the winner here is Russia, which demanded and won on the lifting on Iran's behalf of these ICBM sanctions. Why did we concede on that?
Well, we didn't concede on that, Mr. Chairman. In fact, we won a victory because we have 7 nations negotiating. 3 of the 7 thought that the sanctions ought to be lifted immediately: Iran, Russia, and China. 4 of them, Germany, France, Britain, the United States, thought they shouldn't. And what we succeeded in doing was keeping both the arms embargo and the missile component, the missiles for 8 years, the arms for 5 years, notwithstanding the fact that Iran has a very legitimate argument, which they were making, that the UN resolution 1929, which is what created the sanctions and the structure we were negotiating under, said that if Iran comes to the table and negotiates, all the sanctions would be lifted. Now, they didn't just come to the table to negotiate. They made a deal. They signed an agreement. They came to an overall agreement. So they felt that they were in compliance with the UN resolution, and we felt, on the other hand, that their behavior in the region was such that it would be unconscionable, notwithstanding, to lift. So the compromise was the 5 and 8, but we don't feel we lost anything whatsoever in that, Mr. Chairman, for the following reasons. The UNSCR, the UN resolution 1929, is a nuclear resolution. Susan Rice put she was then at the UN, she put the arms piece in at the last minute. It was a sort of throw in at the last moment into this nuclear resolution. And the nuclear resolution always contemplated that if the IAEA came to what is known as its broad conclusion that Iran was not engaged in any illicit activities in its declared or undeclared activities, then all the sanctions are lifted. So no matter what was going to happen here, we were going to lose both the missile and the arms under the UN component. But here's what we've done in the meantime that we believe actually takes care of this issue. First of all,
Mr. Secretary, I followed the arguments that you've made about the laws that we have to defend against Iran's missile program, and I understand the steps that you took here. I'm just saying big picture, when we end up with a bottom line where in 8 years they get the missile, it doesn't look like a victory. To me, it looks like an own goal. They may not get the missile at that time, but they can buy the technology at that time. The embargo is lifted at that time.
Actually, they can't, Mr. Chairman, because we have, happily, we have several other protocols which prevent that from happening. Specifically, the Missile Control Technology Regime prevents that from taking place. We have an executive order by the President of the United States that, in fact, prevents the transfer.
I would just point out there's a reason why Russia pushed it. There's a reason we did not
because Russia didn't want the UN component of this, but they know that we have separate capacities and we will apply them.
I would hope that we could strengthen our hand in this as we go along, but the bottom line is Iran is getting a financial windfall. It increases its support for terrorist proxies. They have announced that recently. It reintegrates into the global economy. It upgrades its conventional weapons. I think it upgrades its ballistic missile program in this over the time of this agreement. It has an industrial-sized nuclear program in 10 years, and that's the time frame only if they don't cheat. So when I look at this, and I see that Iran's neighbors who know it the best trust it the least, I just ask, we're presuming Iran is going to change its behavior.
No, we're
and
not.
that behavior did not change last weekend when they were chanting again, "Death to America."
Chairman, please, with all due respect, we're not presuming any such thing. There's no presumption in here about what Iran will or won't do. There's one objective: make sure they can't get a nuclear weapon. And on the backside of that, we have a very robust initiative that will push back against Iran's other activities. But let me be very specific.
Well, my time's
Executive Order
expired.
12938 authorizes U.S. sanctions on foreign persons that materially contribute to the proliferation of missiles, including efforts to manufacture, acquire, develop, and transfer them by any person or foreign country of proliferation concern. That's just one
Okay.
of about 4 or 5.
My time's expired, Mr. Secretary. I'm going to go to Mr. Engel, but thank you very much.